The race, they all seem to be on the phone to each other. I'm not sure if they're talking to each other.
They're trying to figure out what's going on. Like, obviously, like I said, they've gone through all of the tests of this. But testing can only be so much. And when it comes to the real thing, if that happens, you really do have to take some time and think, what am I doing again? It's a lot to get through. I mean, we've got this rule book that's just full of numbers, full of data, which they have all been through, I'm sure, that they need to memorize for this scenario.
This is remarkable scenes at Le Mans. A dog giving some love. Lots of dogs appeared in the supercars streams, and I'm so glad we got our first dog in. I'm going to bring my dog into the studio tomorrow, and then we've got our own live dog to present. Why not? One of the guys who is very, very legendary in the world of motorsport is not Martin Haven. It's Mario Andretti talking with Martin.
Well, let's welcome from his home Mario Andretti. Mario, you raced in just about everything with wheels. During your career, how important a race was Le Mans to drivers from the States?
Oh, for me, it was absolutely important. I mean, that's my first experience at Le Mans was way back in 1966. And I really welcomed that opportunity ever since. You know, I always look forward. I love driving Le Mans. I just wish I would have had even, you know, maybe more success like everyone else. But at the same time, I think, you know, we had a few podiums, and, you know, I was able to at least win class, finish second, third. I had the opportunity to drive there with my own son, Michael, and also at one point with my son, Michael, and my nephew, John, you know, for Porsche in 1988. So great experience there with the family as well. But Le Mans is one circuit that I thoroughly enjoyed, quite honestly. Very important in my career.
Now, from the time when you first started, that was one of the great sports car eras, the mid-60s. Obviously, everybody now knows the story so well of Ford versus Ferrari, the GT40 program, and 66 was so much a part of that. You raced in the Group C era. You raced after that in modern prototypes as well. So you've seen it develop. Has it become a bigger challenge for drivers, or is it still as you would remember it from 66?
Well, the challenge was always there, obviously. The one good thing about it became a lot safer because I remember in 66, you know, you didn't dare go off anywhere because, you know, it was not much protection available. But, you know, when you look at it today, even the times that my last race was in 2000, incredible improvements there. And also, the characteristic of Le Mans remain in many ways, even though there were several changes of the circuit, which were good changes. And I'm just happy that I can say I've experienced that as well, you know. So from that standpoint, I feel that I had a very rich experience to be able to say that I tried, you know, the couple different, you know, this, solutions of the track. And so I'm well informed, you know, with whoever I speak to. Yeah, I know what they're talking about. And I think, you know, that's something that I cherish very much.
Recently, since you've retired from racing, you've still been doing a lot of driving. You drive the two-seater Indy car, so that keeps your reflexes sharp. And you went racing again a few weeks ago, and your social media comment was, which I loved, it's a long while since I was a rookie at Indy. So what was that experience like, the sim racing deal for the first time for you?
Well, very interesting, of course, and challenging indeed. You know, it's not a given, and you often wonder, do I have the same equipment as everybody else, and all of that. So those are all factors. But you know, you don't take anything for granted. Again, it's an art in itself to be able to be a good gamer. And so I have, the equipment in my house now. So I'll try to become a decent gamer myself, so I could have some more fun with it. And I keep being invited to be, to participate in some of these races. And who knows? I think especially on the off season, probably this will continue to be popular. It's just another venue to present motor racing to the public. So yes, I mean it's great to be able to take advantage of the technology that's available.
And that's exactly what's happening this weekend with Virtual Le Mans 24 Hours. Half the field are pro racers, half the field are pro sim racers. So we're mixing oil and water, and people are driving from their own homes in Europe, in the US, in Japan, in New Zealand, I mean, across the globe in a way that was unimaginable in the 1960s. You could barely make a phone call to Europe. It's a huge transition, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing. The technology today, really brings the entire world to so close together. As I say, even when I'm on a sim, the same day I can go from Spa to Le Mans to Coda to Indianapolis and do it all in the same day. So, and I don't even need a passport. So, again, like I said, some of this is just incredible, and it's great to be able to take advantage of it.
Well, I know for the sim racers, they're relishing the opportunity to race against the likes of Fernando Alonso and to race against the likes of Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, Formula One drivers, and the Le Mans greats. And definitely, if you put Mario Andretti in a car, everyone will be going, oh my word, we've got to race against this guy. So if we can get you in these championships on a semi-regular basis, then that's got to be a boost for everybody as well.
Well, yes, I mean, it's a real compliment to be invited, and we'll see whether I will devote enough time to feel that I can be somewhat competitive. But again, the opportunity is there, and who knows? I just might, the passion might grow in me to try to pursue this a little more vigorously. But again, it's wonderful that it's there, and it's great for the sport, for all sports, to be able to do some of this virtual activity that, again, the fans will enjoy very much. As you say, just to be able to have so many different generations race at the same time, it's almost something that, well, you could say just a couple of years ago was impossible.
And again, because nobody else is racing, we can draw drivers from just about any sphere on the planet. And hopefully, as you say, the fans will enjoy this as much as they will the real race in September or any other year. Mario Andretti, always a pleasure to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for talking to us. And listen, have a great weekend.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Great interview from Martin and Mario Andretti, another legend on our stream. Good news, we're going to get the red flag cleared in a couple of moments' time, and we should be going racing in probably 2 or 3 minutes. So we will have cars back on track. The server has been reset. This has all been practiced. This has all been rehearsed. This is not a surprise. This is very much in the scope of what we expected to happen. And a great job from the Motorsport Games people and the WEC organization to react and prepare for this eventuality. It probably won't be the last one. Let's go now to Haley Edmonds, who has Doug Feehan from Corvette Racing. I wonder how that affects this sim race.
I'm live with Doug Feehan, Program Manager for Chevrolet Corvette Racing. Firstly, Doug, you're looking very cozy there with a little fire going on. How are you doing and where are you?
It's a little chilly here today in Michigan, and I'm down in my little man cave. This is where I'm allowed to hang out to do all motorsports activities in my home. The rest of my home, of course, if you walked in, you would have no idea what I do for a living. So any sort of race memorabilia is banned any place in the house but down here. So I am quite cozy down here. I've got big screen TV. I've got all my computers. I've got everything I need to operate, and really looking forward to the success of this event.
So just tell me about the 24 Hours of Le Mans virtual. Are you following it?
Yes, yes, I am.
Good to hear.
I haven't watched every minute of it. It's Saturday here. It's daytime. I've got other duties that I have to take care of. But I do have it on. I've been back and forth with it, and I've watched our guys run from the back to the front, which is pretty much customary for Corvette racing.
So unfortunately, due to obviously current circumstances, Corvette Racing won't be participating in the 24 Hours of Le Mans this September. However, of course, you are very present in the GT category here at 24 Hours of Le Mans Virtual. So what do you think of their performance thus far?
I'm actually quite pleased. You know, we were late to the party. We didn't really have a car ready. So we had to go double time, which is what racers do. You respond to the situation. So I'm quite pleased that we're able to participate. You know, this is really hard for us from the standpoint of not being able to participate in the real race. And so it was incumbent upon us to demonstrate our loyalty and our appreciation and our respect for the event by participating in the virtual race. So we worked very, very hard to get here. And obviously, you know, we have a car that we think will be reasonably competitive. And at every turn, this thing is kind of like real racing. Anything can happen. And, you know, we've won a bunch of Le Mans races by anything happening, and we've lost a bunch by anything happening. So the guys are pretty engaged. We're really excited to be part of it.
So, Doug, as someone who's very, very familiar with the 24 Hours of Le Mans, I mean, how do you find the actual 24 Hours Le Mans virtual version? And what does it mean to you to be able to have this kind of going from reality to a virtual version, a race that's so legendary?
You know, this cuts way deeper than just a race on a computer, all right? First of all, this is a wonderful substitute. I can remember the first virtual Formula One race that I saw. I put it up on my big TV upstairs, okay? And I was just paging through it, came up, and I was thinking, well, this is a real race. I wanted to watch the virtual race. I from a videography perspective, I couldn't tell the difference between the virtual race and the real race. I had to look for a couple of minutes to figure out that what I was watching was a graphic representation. So the realism is incredible. I mean, the visual that you actually get from watching it on the screen is amazing to me. Secondly, we got to think about this. You know, as we try and grow our sport, which in today's world is a difficult challenge in all of sports, we have to be aware of what a younger audience, what a younger culture expects, what they adapt to. You know, when you have young people out there today that would rather watch a movie on their phone than they would on a 60-inch LED. I don't know how that is, but that's the world in which they live. You know, that device is their connection to their civilization. We have to be able to respond to that. And I think this virtual racing does that. Think about this. If we can get a new fan to virtual racing and they follow virtual racing, when a real race comes to their geographic area of the planet, they're going to want to come out and see these same guys in real life. They're going to want to see the cars in real life. They're going to want to see the drivers in real life. They're going to want to see the atmosphere in real life. So we're using virtual racing to build a new audience, and then I think the follow-up will be that they will actually end up attending events. And we can run a lot more virtual events at off times than we can real events. So I see the two as working really together in creating a bright future for motorsports in general. I just want to get younger people involved, and I think this virtual racing is a great way to do it. And of course, it does sustain the existing generation, giving them something to watch, keeping them engaged. You have to be just as cognizant of retaining your current customer as you do in getting a new one. And I think this goes a long way to keeping them engaged. It's certainly a wonderful replacement for what we do in real life.
I think that's a fantastic analogy, of course, of this like evolution that we're currently, you know, witnessing here with this kind of real to virtual kind of crossover. Just one last question. Last year you celebrated 20 years of Corvette racing at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Do you have a particular memory that you could share with us about this event?
I have. We could do a 24-hour event on just memories, okay? But I have to tell you, I think the most the most poignant memory I have of having been there for 20 consecutive years, I've been there many more years, but we did it 20 years in a row with Corvette, I think was that first victory that we had. And actually getting down to the conclusion of the race, the things that led up to that, seeing that checkered flag drop, those cars cross the finish line, everybody in the paddock in our pit area was totally exhausted, grown men reduced to tears, embracing each other, laughing, crying. That moment was incredible. And then to move up into the tower, onto that podium, to stand on that top step while they're playing the national anthem was just an Olympic moment for me. I get chills right now just thinking about that. That is etched in my mind. That will never go away. That feeling will never be reduced. It was probably the most incredible moment in sports that I've ever encountered. It was just amazing.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing that with us, Doug. And enjoy the 24 Hours of Le Mans Virtual.
Thank you so much. I hope everybody out there is enjoying it. It's a great race, and I'm glad we're getting back to racing.
Cars sitting on the grid, getting ready for the restart of the 24-hour Le Mans Virtual. They will get exactly the same as a normal start. So the lead car, the BWT hydrogen-powered H24 machine, will take them round a lap. Our safety car driver's here in the studio, his first opportunity to actually do a lap, and he now pulls away. The rest of the field in the same order that they finished lap 78, one lap rolled back. Will form up behind, and then we will go racing. Now, Lewis, just explain a little bit technically as to what has happened between the red flag going out and this moment.
A lot is the main thing. So we've got all of these rules, like we said about that, how they have practiced this. Essentially, in this scenario, the drivers that haven't stopped are effectively given a free pit stop because basically the server's been restarted, so they've rejoined what is effectively in the game a new race. Even though we're obviously the timer has not stopped as per the rules. We're in effectively a different race than what we were in previously. Thus, everyone can restart. Everyone has a brand new car. Anyone that was carrying damage at the time, anyone that was, say for example, low on fuel at the time, the car directly on screen there, the 2Cs car, they effectively have a free pit stop. They've been given a full tank of fuel, fresh tyres. They have gained from this, have 2Cs Motorsports Team Redline, the number 20. That one has obviously lost out a little bit from that. We were clarifying a few things on the rules.
Yeah, just explain how that's happened. So basically, 2Cs Motorsport had not pitted.
Correct.
Most of the LMP2 field had pitted, and therefore, because everybody gets a brand new car, full fuel, new tyres, no one needs to pit for another 10 laps in the LMP2, 14, 15 laps in GT. So it has given effectively a much larger lead to TC's Motorsport. Driver changes are allowed,
Correct.
And so we will see different drivers in the car. I can see that Macduff is now aboard 2Cs rather than Devlin, who was finishing his quadruple stint. So benefit to 2Cs Motorsport in LMP, but in GT, and a massive advantage also, by the looks of things, to Corvette Racing.
Correct. Now, this is also major because certain teams have gained a lot through the early part of the race. Through, say, for example, this, because we've got to do a full outlap here, all single file, and they will restart single file. From this, the teams that maybe started the race, they went a lap later. The 2Cs car did this. They went a lap later than everyone else. They went 10 laps, so it was at the outlap plus 9 laps, meaning 10 laps. Everyone else did the outlap plus 8 laps. Now that everyone's seen that happen, and it'll be the same in GT, they've witnessed what's happened, they'll think, that's what you've done, and you gained quite a bit from that. We'll take that, and we will we'll try and extract our own advantage from that. So everything at this point is set to 0 with 18 hours and 40 minutes to go.
And we do expect this kind of situation to happen again. This won't be the last red flag. We would assume, we'd hope that we can go running, but unfortunately, due to limitations within the R Factor 2 platform, we do have to be preservation measures in so that we're not reacting to issues. We are preserving and making sure that we don't have cars that literally can't race and therefore lose laps, and therefore when in the timing having to add things, it just would be more messy. So by doing this, we're keeping it more clean, and it's exactly what would happen in the real world if we had to repair a barrier or we had a major incident. I've commentated on many races that have been red flagged, 24-hour races that have had 8-9 hours of red flags due to weather conditions, due to track conditions, due to incidents on track. So this is no different to that in real life. And we will go back to full speed racing. So we're on lap 78. We roll back one lap, but we take the result from that period. Anybody who was down one lap will stay down one lap, but anybody within that lap is going to basically concertina up. You can see that the order is all mixed up, so it is kind of like a safety car restart with GTs mixed in with the LMPs. The safety car is driving very, very slowly, but it's going to be very cold tyres when we do go racing. But so effectively up to 17th position is on the lead lap. The top 16 cars, the gaps will be kind of reset back to kind of zero. But of course with the GT cars in the way. So whilst Team Redline have lost out by a pit stop, they've gained because the concertina of the field. Now there is Fernando Alonso's car was coming into the game. Maybe a connectivity issue there, but there he is back in the game. So Fernando Alonso, who is in that car?
Jarl Tyen
is in the car. Fernando Alonso is on his bicycle apparently, so we will see him later on, but we saw them run out of fuel after not being able to get into the pits and having various issues with drive-through penalties being given to them and just kind of tripping over this machine. They do obviously have a lot of laps back, but fantastic to see that car, and therefore Rubens Barrichello hopefully driving that car a little bit later on. We don't really want to see anybody in that situation, but we can't give them laps back because some of our LMP cars are 6 or 5 laps down. So unfortunately it is what it is, but we'll still have that entertainment, and Rubens Barrichello gets the wish that he asked Anna McNish from. So 16 cars on the lead lap in LMP. In the GT category, it is the top 14 cars on the lead lap. Gaps will be shortened and we will go back to racing again, much like if we had a safety car period in any endurance race around the world. So all of you criticising and complaining about these red flags, perhaps online, this is like it is in real life. It's just a different reason for the red flag situation, and we're going to go back to racing when finally our BWT safety car gets round. By the way, it is a lot faster than that real. We saw Alan McNish going a lot faster, but we're allowing Fernando Alonso to catch the tail, or sorry, not Fernando Alonso, but the FARB All in Sports team to catch the tail of this snake, and therefore we do need to go quite slowly, although I see now the speed is increasing. And for those of you that are sim fans, Aurélien Mallet is the driver of the safety car, otherwise known as G2, or now Red Bull Esports, Liège. So very famous, very, very famous driver who sadly, due to his ties with the team, was unable to take part in this race, but it's great to have him here in Paris as our safety car driver.
Yeah, at least in some degree being on the grid, and I mean, you know, leading more laps than most are today. At the head of the field, we're getting ready to go racing again. This is going to be frantic as it was at the start of the race. Of course, we're heading through the Porsche curves again. Jarl Tyen, who has obviously caught up to the back, I think he will just sit at the end of this single file line, but it is nice, as you said, to see FARB All in Sports back in the race. We'll see Fernando, we'll see Rubens back in the car, and Jarl, incredibly talented driver, more so on the oval scene, although he won't like me saying it, drives for G2 Esports, obviously a part of Fernando's stuff over in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series on iRacing, comes over here, does some circuit racing, and is on the G29 wheel. Not the best wheel that you can buy, but still, he's got a lot of work to do.
So we are going to do another safety car lap. That's why the safety car is running slowly to keep the field bunched. The second lap will be a bit faster. And I have had just confirmation from Gerard Neveu, who is the boss of the WEC organisation, that Fernando Alonso will be on the same amount of laps as the last LMP running. So he's been going to be given 63 laps, and he will run 6 laps behind the leader. The team and himself, Fernando, very happy with that, very thankful to the organisation for allowing him back in the race, and it's the kind of thing you can do in the virtual world. So the live timing will be updated, but Fernando Alonso will start at the tail of the field in 30th position and 6 laps back, but with the ability to move up through the field, and they will only be a couple of seconds behind the Axel Motorsport Malaysian team of Alex and Alistair Jung. One of them is in the car right now because they've got the same first name and because our live timing only uses initials. I don't know which one's which, but one of them is in the car right now, Alistair or Alex.
I hadn't thought of that until I look at that now. I have no idea.
Same problem happens with me and my father. Post comes in, B Constant Juris, no idea who it is.
Yeah, it's not ideal. Of course, either way, still one of them behind the wheel anyway. And it's nice to have everyone back in the game, back in the race, because the thing is, I know that there's not a championship up for line. Of course, there is the crown, the big one, winning the Le Mans 24 virtual. But you're still in the race. You can still get to the checker flag, and that in itself is an achievement. To go through the entire race, through all of the hardship that it is. You grow with your team. You're with 3 other drivers in the team, potentially a couple of race engineers. For this day, that is your family. And you really do grow closer, even in the sim racing community. Those of you sat at home thinking, yeah, it's a motorsport thing. It's not. It is not. I have done seasons among drivers like this, and you do grow closer. That's why teams tend to stick together in endurance racing and sim racing more so than, say, sprint stuff, because you get to know everyone more. They are your friends. They are your family. They are part of what makes you want to come back to the racetrack. So it's just great to see everyone back together again.
Now, let's talk about the weather. Let's talk about the shadows that we're seeing. We don't expect rain in the race. There is the possibility. There have been test races in the rain, but we understand the forecast is that there will not be rain, although who can predict the weather? What we can see, though, is those shadows are lengthening. It's 8:30 local time here in Paris. Unbelievably, and something that continues to baffle me, in the height of summer in the north of France, it doesn't really get fully dark on a nice day until 11 o'clock at night. We were out having dinner last night, and I looked at the time, and it was still sunny, blue sky in the sky. It was 10:30. I've never been able to get my head around it. I'm married to a French woman. I live in France. Her family are in Brittany. And when we go up there, we eat at 10:30 at night. So we've still got a couple of hours worth of daylight before we get into the twilight. And then we will be racing in darkness for approximately 8 hours before we go through the morning. And of course, track temperature is changed. The air temperature that affects the car as well will also change, and we're going to see that transition, and it is a beautiful transition on R Factor 2. It's done very, very well, and so important, because actually up until a few years ago this was the only platform that could do it.
Yeah, indeed. It's a full 24-hour sequencing game. They've had a slight tweak to the lighting engine recently that's made everything look even better than normal when it comes to at least this part of the race. It does look better at daytime as well. What we're going to see is sort of everything you'd expect from Le Mans. When it comes down to this point, vision is difficult. It is hard to see, especially on the run down towards Indianapolis, into the Porsche curves whilst the sun is setting. And then when it goes to darkness, you've got all the lights on around the circuit. You've got the wheel lights up. Don't sit there panicking at home thinking, oh no, it won't. The atmosphere that Studio 397 have put into Le Mans is very, very good from a simulation perspective. And you consider it's not really something that you need, but it's something that's just, it's a part of the race, and it should be there. And it's so great that it is, because it just makes you think, oh, I am actually racing at Le Mans.
We need to explain a little bit, because there's a little bit of grumpiness on Twitter right now regarding the fact that, well, some people are really happy that Fernando's back in the race. Some people are not. Let's just explain the process as to what happened and why we have allowed him back in the race. So initially, Fernando had contact with Simone de Silvestro and was given a drive-through penalty for that contact. He also needed to make a pit stop and came into the pits as the drive-through penalty was awarded to him, which meant he could not choose the drive. He could not choose to get the drive-through penalty or take it later, and he didn't have enough fuel to do another lap. Correct. But he had no chance to say, I don't want to do the drive-through penalty, I want to do the pit stop, I'll do the drive-through penalty the lap after, because he was already in the pits and he had no ability to basically deselect drive-through. So then he did the drive-through penalty after about half an hour of discussing what to do, had gone through pit lane, cleared his drive-through penalty, however did not have enough fuel to get back to the pits to then do his pit stop. That, obviously, is a technicality in the game and a very unfortunate situation to be in, something that perhaps was new to race control and to motorsport games, and therefore we have allowed him to come back. It seems like, for me, a fair thing to do. It's not favoritism because of who Fernando is. It is, we want to have as many cars in the field as possible. It is because that drive-through penalty was awarded at just that wrong moment in time, and he couldn't take it and he was stuck. So I wanted to totally clear that up. Hopefully that makes some of you grumpy people a little happier, I don't know. But that is why he's been given some laps back as well, because what would be the point of running around 68 laps behind the leader? At least here he has a chance of being a little bit competitive. So I think I did that well, didn't I, Lewis?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's the right call in the sense of, you know, we want everyone to get to the checkered flag, and with it being a technical thing, I think it's the right decision. Giving the laps back, I get that that might be a bit controversial. At the same time, though, I would argue that, come on, we want to see Fernando racing. We want to see him racing for position. You're right, like, why would you want to circulate if you're just 68 laps down? If you're 6, sure, you're probably not going to win the race.
Yeah.
At the same time, you can actually compete. You can move forward. You're part of the conversation.
So another lap on behind the safety car by the looks of things. Not quite sure what that is going on. Somebody completely wrong with their tweets. Don't believe everything you read on Twitter, folks. Gregor Hootie is P2. He's actually, according to the timing screens, just 5 seconds behind 2C's Motorsport. So Team Redline had an advantage of 17 seconds before we went into the red flag situation. Okay, 2C's have now got the advantage, and that was in part, or not in part, very much thanks to that first stint that Ollie Rowland did, that he did a full 10 laps when everybody else pitted after 8.
Yeah, he went the distance, and the thing is that I don't think they were counting on this happening, but effectively they were going 2 laps longer than everyone else, and that time, that 7-ish minute period, is when this red flag was called. So they got very lucky, to be fair to them. On our live time, like you said, there's 5-7 seconds between them. That is from running around at pace car speed. So that's what they're doing at the moment. That's the difference between them. Of course, once we get up to racing speed, that gap will be much, much, much less. So that is definitely a position that we will need to focus on. Rory Macduff versus Gregor Hootie, which as a sim racing fan is not something I thought I would be saying, because Gregor Hootie is right at the tippy top, has been there for 20 years. Rory Macduff is an up-and-coming sim racer who's very much finding his speed. This is going to be a very intense battle, of course. Gobby's not very far behind. The Bicolis Burst esports car of Pedersen, very, very close indeed. You've got Stoffel van Dorn not very far behind. This is going to be just like the start of the race. Everything is going to kick off, and we have got a lot to look at.
Mathis Besch is aboard the leading Corvette in the GTE field for Romain Grosjean esports team. Or it's R8G esports team, but I prefer to say Romain Grosjean, is easier. Yeah. Nicky Katzberg in Corvette Racing's Works car in second. Katzberg is a BMW Works driver, he is a Hyundai Works driver, and he is a Corvette Racing Works driver. On Thursday evening, he was representing BMW in esports racing, and now he's representing Corvette in esports racing. What a busy boy. He is second in GT, but he's got Ayçan Guven in the first of the Porsches right behind. So as we mentioned a little bit earlier on, all of the Corvettes were able to do 15 lap stints. The rest of the GT field tend to be doing 14, although we have seen Ferrari last time through getting a 15 lap stint out of the car of Antonio Giovinazzi. And so those Corvettes didn't pit and the rest of the GT field had pitted. And kind of coincidentally, all of those LMP and GT pit stops happening at the same time, because they haven't been, but we've got to that point now where they've kind of synced up. So complete coincidence, of course. But here is the full page of where we are at then. Macduff and 2Cs Motorsport will lead Gregor Hootie at Team Redline, with Fabrizio Gobi in the Toyota Gazoo Racing Argentina entry, another to benefit from this. Pedersen in the Bicoles is right back up there. Romanadis in the first of the Rebellion Williams Esports. Then Stoffel Vandoorne is back with Veloce Esports 1. Casabo in Panis Racing. Briant for Toyota Gazoo Racing, very fast sim driver. Jordan at TDS. Senna at Rebellion. Gasly, Formula One driver Pierre Gasly for Esports, Veloce Esports 1, and then Wisniewski, Von der Heyde, Uski Jakola, Fittipaldi, Jack Keithley down in 16th, Kevin Siggy, the first car to be a lap down in 17th position for Jota Team Redline, then Borger, Colapino, Van Uiteret, Schulevliet, Catherine Legg is aboard the Richard Mille, Andy Prio is aboard Multimatic Zanshu, Juan Pablo Montoya, Team Penske, Curry Yazdorp, Toyota Racing, and then the GT cars a bit further down. Matthias Besch, Katzberg, Guven, Jan Magnussen, Bouteloup, Biancola for Aston Martin, Enzo Benito for Ferrari, Andrea Lotterer for Porsche, then Van Doren, Ciara for Team Project One, Stoltz for Ferrari F Corsa, Vroman for Feed Racing, Miguel Molina for Ferrari F Corsa 71, and then the cars that are one lap down. Maguire for Gulf Racing, the Wolf sponsored machine. Rotting in the male racing team. Matthias Kronke in Porsche Esports 94. The Stronger Together, Tony Mela is in the 54, and then Roscan in Aston Martin 98. Danny Gusa, Team Project One 56, and Charlie Eastwood in the 97, who is 3 laps down. So they had a big accident a bit earlier on. But otherwise, other than Charlie Eastwood, the GT cars are separated by just 2 laps. So they've all concertinaed up, and it's going to be epic racing. Now, look at the view. Look how the sun is now starting to bounce off the tarmac. That is exactly what Alan McNish and all of our legendary drivers will have experienced at Le Mans back in the day, and that sun is going to come down and start to blind them. And actually, for me, it's even harder in the virtual world than the real world, the way that the sun comes down and the way your eyes react to it, Lewis.
Yeah, Alan was driving yesterday, and he was saying that on the run down towards Indianapolis, he's like, that is right. That is how it is. It is blinding. You can't see anything. You're dipping in and out of the shadows. It's very, very tricky to pick your braking point, to figure out where it is, and that's on the run down towards Indianapolis. That is one of the hardest corners on the circuit in these cars. You get a little bit of oversteer through the kink, and then if you overdo it at that point, well, it's a very fast crash, as we saw from Brendan Hartley earlier in the race. We're about ready, I think, to go. And, well, how it's going to be, I don't know. Like you say, there is, was it 13 GTEs on the lead lap? You've got 17 LMP2s. This is after 5 and a bit hours of racing. It is very close still between all of this lot.
There was a little issue, I think, with Toyota Gazoo Racing number 8 entry, Yuri Kazdorp, entering back into the race. So that is why we've done a few more safety car laps. But Kazdorp is back out on circuit now and part of the train. So as you say, we will hear from Eduardo Freitas, our race director, to tell the drivers when they are going back and when the safety car lights come off. And then we will be going back to racing. Well, we're in the Porsche curves already, so I would be surprised if we are going this time by.
I don't know if they can turn the lights off on the pace car if it turns the whole lights off. I don't know how it works, because I've not seen it in game until now. It is great to see, by the way, having a a pace car built just for this event. I mean, that's technically the second car built for this when you count the Ferrari as well, which is, you know, sort of built for this event.
Absolutely, and thank you very much to our safety car drivers who will be hanging around for the full 24 hours in case they are needed, and to BWT, the partner of the safety car, a fantastic partnership for them, and then can get themselves a little bit of publicity, although of course nobody likes to see the safety car, so it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. Cars heading towards the Ford chicane, and I would say that we've got one more tour before we go back to green flag racing. Now, Martin Haven has this thing about, he always ends up filling commentary when there's red flags. I know Martin will be listening, and he spends hours and hours. Oh, we are going racing. That was a bit of a surprise. We are back to racing. I'll leave that for later. But with 18 hours and 19 seconds remaining, 19 minutes remaining, sorry. We're back to green flag with Rory Macduff leading the 2Cs Motorsport machine, 2.4 seconds ahead of Gregor Hootie in the team red line, and then Fabrizio Gobbi in the Toyota Gazoo Racing Argentina entry into the battle, into the midst of the GT battle, with Aycan Guven looking to try and find a way past Nicky Katzberg. These two have been racing each other in the virtual world already on Thursday night's IMSA series. And it's great to have the Corvette guys out the front of the field. Works Corvette versus Works Porsche at Le Mans. Great clear start there. Macduff had a good, nice advantage because there was a few GT cars between him and Gregor Hootie. And of course there is also traffic in terms of other LMP cars. So we just saw in the background there one of the LMP cars getting out of the way of Gregor Hootie to allow Hootie to chase him down. Now, cold tyres, Lewis. That was a very, very slow couple of laps from our safety car, so they're going to be careful on these early laps.
They will do indeed. You've got Rory Macduff there in the top right of your screen wearing a Singularity t-shirt. That's a nice one for him. The tyres, not so bad for the people at the front. That's okay, because they're in clean air, they can sort of work the other way. These cars in this pack, the P2s that have got to come through all of this, as you can see, darting and diving through where the Bicolis there trying to gain a position up in towards the second Mulsanne chicane. That's the battle pack where it's difficult, because you've got to get your tyres up to temperature without overheating them in the early point, without locking up, without causing yourself some damage for the rest of the stint. It is monstrously tricky back there. For those at the front, it's okay, but I would not want to be coming through the field in this scenario.
Good battle on for the GTs as Matthias Besch in the Romain Grosjean Esports team, 4 seconds to the good in front of these two. We've seen Corvette versus Porsche down the Mulsanne before, and Porsche definitely with a slight advantage when it comes to top speed. Also with the inside line, and Aycan Guven goes into second position ahead of Nicky Katzberg, but Katzberg will know that there is a long way to go. The bollards go flying. Of course, we've had a reset, and so all the bollards have been put back in place, so we've got a couple of laps to clear all those out of the way, and if you do hit them at the wrong way, you do get damage. Absolutely. You can get more than that, as we're going to see some side-by-side. I think you might need to take this up towards Indianapolis. Katzberg back into the slipstream, but he's benefiting from the slipstream, but he doesn't have the straight line speed on his own, and where is there space really to find a gap here? It really is single file through Indianapolis and then on to Arnage, and I think he'll have to think cautiously and cleverly. We know that these guys have all got 10 to 15 laps worth of fuel, so they will be running a good stint, and we are still very early on into this race. Stoffel Vandoorne was an absolute star at the start of the 24 hours. He's in 6th position. I think he led at one point, and he is only 10 seconds off the lead, so he's got a bit of LMP traffic to get through, and some very fast sim drivers to put himself up against.
He did such a good job earlier, basically keeping the gap to Atsej Kirchhoff, which there are not many sim drivers that can do that. He did it as a pro driver coming into this against one of the very, very best in sim racing. And I mean, you sit at home and you think, yeah, well, yeah, of course he is, Stoffel Vandoorne. No, that is a remarkable feat. Now running in 6th position, like I say, that is very, very impressive, which shows there is a lot of pace in that Veloce car as they run through the Dunlop chicane and under the bridge for effectively the first proper time.
That gives
in
us
the
a chance to
mid-pack?
look at the gaps then. Rory Macduff, 2 seconds to the good over Gregor Hootie. Then Pedersen in the Bicoles car has got himself up to 3rd spot. He's now 9 seconds back off the leader. And Gobbi in 11 seconds back. Toyota Gazoo Racing Argentina. 15 seconds back is Romanes, and then Van Dorn right on his tail. Let's go and find out from a man who should have been with us, Tom Christensen.
This is fantastic because we've got excellent racing on circuit. We've still got the passion of Le Mans, but also I get to talk to a lot of my old friends as well. It's really cool fun. But this one feels a little bit like an Audi reunion. It feels like going back to work in a way. All we need is Dindo Capello to be there, or Loic Duval in our debrief meeting, and it'd be exactly the same. So I've got Tom Christensen and also our boss, the one and only boss, Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich as well. It's fantastic to see you, gentlemen. How are you?
We are great, thank you. I would complain if it would be really a meeting because you've been a little bit late, Alan.
Well, that was the thing. We always got fined. Dr. Ulrich, if we were late for the meetings, we got a little telling off, but we got fined as well. I'm not sure where the money went. I think Tom took it. Tom, did you take the cash when we were late? And you were never late.
No.
You were never late.
Italy. It's great to see you both, and it's great to see you during these hours where we would normally be somewhere else, or at least in our past we would. But great, it's going on.
Yeah, it is. It's a really interesting sort of race so far, different dynamic. There's times when I actually feel we're in the real world as well as the virtual. There's points when I look at it in the drivers and how they're approaching it. I've got to say, from here, because there's 2 people within the 2 teams here, they're approaching it exactly the same way as we would have done in a real race. That, to me, is a step in the next direction. Tom?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I can absolutely. That's the feeling you get. But at the same time, I think between they're not in the race car, they would maybe be able to. What I have been today. I mean, I've just been able to pop my son down to football. I've just been able to buy a little bit of food before I got back home to see the start, and between the stints. And I've seen. Was it Pagenaud doing a sim change?
A seat change, yeah.
Suddenly, and I saw a dog in a cockpit as well. And so there is a little bit unusual things going on too. But certainly what I see is that they're abusing track limits on the straights, just as you would have done in traffic.
No, not me. Not me. No. I think you're mixing me up with Dindo on that one.
Maybe, but it's great to see you, and it's great to see the graphics. And I mean, of this virtual race, I mean, you really have to look twice sometimes to see the cars bouncing, bottoming, and these things from the real life. I mean, it's really well done, and that's just how the technology, what has been driving racing over so many years. I think that's more a question for Dr. Ulrich, but to see it now popping, and people are sitting everywhere, somewhere in the world, and are being competitive at the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Yeah, that is exactly right. And Dr. Ulrich, you know, when we were racing at Le Mans, we had people there at the circuit, but there was also people back in the base in Neuburg in Germany that were living it live as well, that virtual experience. Did you find that that was the starter for the whole revolution that we're seeing today?
Yeah, let's see it like this. It was for sure a beginning in that direction, because when you have a virtual link to people that support you in the background and they are not at place, that's already the start of having things like a completely virtual race. But coming back to your question, Alan, before, what are the other drivers doing that are normally in the car? And in the virtual race, it's not necessary that they are always there. I just can tell you, I was very happy that we did not have virtual racing, because if I think about where I should have gone to find you guys, I think it's not a good idea. So let's be together and let's keep them together. And I think they also will be very careful that the takeover between the guys is very nicely organized, because they race virtually, but they want to be the best at the end, and they are racers. And if I would have been asked 3 years ago if switching on a TV and seeing a virtual race like I did today from the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and it looks that close to what reality is, I would have said that's a no-go. But what we see today is really great stuff, and I have to say I'm really impressed.
Question for you. You talked about 3 years ago, but if you rewind back to before Audi came to Le Mans, what was the reasons that you took the brand Audi to Le Mans, something that was entrenched in all of our motorsport careers, in fact, honestly, gave us our motorsport careers as well? What was the reason behind it?
I mean, there have been not only one reason, but one of them was that the 24 Hours of Le Mans is a race that is known all over the world. And I think for me, it is still the greatest race in the world. And therefore, the value of the race, if you are there competing, competitive, and at the end even winning, is a very big one, which was important for the build-up of the brand of the company. And the second thing is that in the last 15 years, future-oriented technology was always a way to bring it into a Le Mans race. And if you could prove there that it works out, it was a good base to bring it into road cars. And I think these have been the main reasons at the beginning. For sure, technology of the cars itself here in the virtual race is not a point to talk about, but the technology behind that the virtual race works like it does is impressive.
And Tom, you know, you've got a few trophies there from Le Mans, if I remember correctly. Now, tell me, what's the sort of standout memory? And I know there's got to be so many. Give me one standout memory that maybe everybody at home doesn't know. The ones that you've sort of kept in your pocket up till now. Nothing about Dindo or I, or Emanuele or Frankie, by the way, just so you know.
It's tough to come up with that. There are so many things, Alan, and of course our lives are linked to any teammate or any race we have done at Le Mans, because it's so intense and we give so much to be able to compete, not only for Dr. Ulrich, but also the teams we have done over the years, the mechanics, the engineers, everyone is putting so much into it. And of course, I mean, sometimes it's a relief, sometimes it's the way you are proud, but a moment of truth is that we were treating some of our younger teammates not too nice one morning. I remember leaving the hotel. I think we were robbing their Audi cars and in with some...
Can I just stop you? I don't know if Dr. Ulrich knows this particular story, so, you know, just be careful. This was Tom that was doing the start of it.
We were robbing their rental car in, and of course not the Audi cars, in with some eggs and some from our leftovers from our breakfast. And that was the Thursday morning before we had the final qualifying. And qualifying, I think it went quite well, but after we left the debriefing, shortly past midnight, of course, always united, Dr. Ulrich, Dindo, Alan and myself were going to our Audi car to go back. And we realized our car was a bit higher than before because it was boxed up on top of our wheels, which were taken off and put on top of our wheels, and suddenly people were bursting out laughing, and that was sort of our younger teammates showing their respect. And I think that's you should know that, Dr. Ulrich. We should have told you back then, and maybe you will have done a little bit different with that. That was the younger teammates, the respect they showed, but they helped us and we got back. That was nice.
Yeah, they certainly did. And that was one of the things, was the teamwork that actually, Dr. Ulrich, that you developed between all of the drivers. I think was one of the stories of the success. I'm sure, though, it wasn't always easy.
No, it was not easy. But I think the example you mentioned showed that the team spirit was fine. You have been nice to them. They gave the respect back to you. But at the end, it was always on a way that we knew, yes, we can do that. And that's motivation to everybody. And at the end, we've been sticking even a little bit more together, which I think was one of our big strengths at the end.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. The only thing I would say to you is that even though Dindo Capello is now one of the biggest Audi dealers in Italy, I certainly, after that experience, wouldn't want him doing the services on my car. I'm not quite sure he had the wheels torqued up correctly, but it was an example of everything that we went through. It was the good, the bad, but we lived it all together. And I've got to say that you two are some of the most successful people that's ever walked through the gates of Le Mans, as a driver and also as a team boss. And so you are part of it, you're part of the legend of Le Mans, and deservedly so, a part of the Hall of Fame. So thank you very much, gentlemen. I hope you have a fantastic 24 hours, and look forward to seeing you in the real world very soon in September, when we actually hear the cars going past the Ford chicane to start the race for real.
Yeah, that's what we're going to look for.
Thank you, Alan.
Beautiful stories from two of the men that I really looked up to when working for Audi a few years ago, and the pleasure to work with them. Incredible stories, and something you need to look out for if you ever do go to Le Mans and you find yourself in the drivers' car park area is exactly what they were talking about. Cars in various states of disarray with things outside of them, because that is what that's what happens all the way through the week. There are various practical jokes being played on each other's teammates. It's, you know, these racing drivers, they tend to come up through the ranks as drivers on their own, so put them together and they get particularly naughty. Whilst we were talking there, Pierre Gasly has done a very, very good job. We had a great battle with him and Bruno Senna. He managed to get past Jan van der Heide. Nikodem Wisniewski's been following him through, and now he's on the tail of the Toyota Gazoo Racing of Maxime Briand. Maxime Briand, the only driver to actually race in Le Mans. The only reason for that is because he comes from and was born in Le Mans. So that is our simulator in the town in which we are actually or virtually racing. Great battle in GTE between Ayhan Guven and Matthias Besch, and Guven is now ahead of Besch. So Porsche back up to the lead of the race, and he has really had the pace since we went back to green flag racing.
Yeah, whilst all that's been going on, we had those interviews. You may have seen it on your screen. There was contact between the 2C's car and what looked to be one of the Panis cars. That Panis car, the Panis AAA car, I believe it was a lap down, gaining a lap back, made contact into the braking zone, heading up into the first chicane on the Mulsanne. Also, Jeremy Bouteloup in the Porsche Esports team, the number 92, the orange one, gained another position, is now up into third place. Nicky Katzberg has dropped back behind Manuel Biancalilla in the Aston Martin Racing. So the start of this restart has been absolutely madness, as we would expect.
Frenetic. Pierre Gasly, I think, is the 5th of our 5 Formula 1 drivers to appear. We've seen all the others already, our current Formula 1 drivers, I should say. Gasly up to 8th in the Veloce Esports #1 car. Interestingly, Gasly and Jean-Eric Verne are sharing a simulator in Paris. So they're somewhere wherever Jean-Eric is living, and Pierre is with him, and the two of them are jumping in and out of the simulator. Look at where Matthias Besch is in a Formula 1 cockpit. He's obviously got a little bit of movement in that simulator as well. That looks to me as though a high-end professional simulator that drivers would use to prepare for races. Although actually, I'd say it should have movement. It doesn't look like it's moving at all.
I don't think it does. There is a wraparound screen though, so that's it's 180 degrees, so he's got a bit of peripheral vision in there. One question to you though: would you not find that kind of distracting to be driving a GTE car from a Formula-style cockpit? Would that not be a little bit distracting?
A little bit weird. I suppose the screen is showing the cockpit as well. He's in Vergy in France. I need somebody who knows France better than I to be able to confirm exactly where that is. But he's sharing a car with a driver from North Macedonia, Estonia, and Dublin in Ireland. Why is Danny Juncadella in Dublin in Ireland? That's very odd. Either way, he is. Here is Gregor Hootie, I believe.
It is indeed.
He's losing time to Rory Macduff.
Yeah, losing a little bit through some lap traffic. Not sure how much time he's really losing through that. Obviously, the best laps that we've got at the moment are in comparison to since the race restart, as everything's been reset. And Gregor Hootie has done a 2:25.6, 3/10 slower, or quicker rather, than Macduff.
Ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourselves. If you are a lady of a disposition, get yourself braced to the sofa. It is the legend that is Patrick Dempsey.
My next guest, who I'm in live right now with, is none other than the actor, and of course we know him as the 4 times competitor of 24 Hours of Le Mans and the co-owner of Dempsey Proton Team, Patrick Dempsey. Firstly, how are you doing, and where are you following the 24 Hours of Le Mans virtual?
Well, good evening to you. And I'm in Malibu, California. I'm out in a little makeshift studio that has become my Zoom room. And I'm watching the 88 car right now. Wow,
Oh, yeah.
it's amazing. It's really quite interesting because you really get a sense of the elevation change and certainly the movement.